welcome back to my channel. If you don't know me by now, my name is Trini Lovely, and today we're going to have a very interesting topic, and this topic is about forgiving yourself, and sometimes you hear the saying of you have to forgive, right? You have to learn to forgive someone, but sometimes we can also kind of neglect forgiving our own self for the pain that you cause on someone. I know very early on, before I even started my spiritual journey, I would, beat up myself so many times of when I see that I hurt someone, and be really hard on myself and bothered, especially if I see that I caused that person misery and hurt. And I would not know how to move forward because it would just play on my conscience of the pain that I caused in that person's life. And I remember my mother one time, she was like, you gotta learn to forgive yourself. And, once you forgive yourself, you'll be able to move forward. And there's a lot of times where people sometimes have a lot of depressional feeling based on hurting someone, and it bothers them so much that they just feel like they can't live with themselves because they don't know how to move forward from the pain that they caused on someone. And it tends to kind of like fall into a category where they hate themselves for just doing mean, malicious stuff to people. And I want to let you know that in this video, we're going to talk about Psalm 62. And now Psalm 62 is a very good psalm where you can actually learn to forgive yourself. Now, there's a holy name to activate this psalm, and the psalm holy name is Yah, spelled as Y-A-H. And after saying the psalm, there's a specific prayer that goes behind the psalm. And the prayer goes, may it be thy will, El Chad, that thou forgives me and pardons and release me from my sins, as thou hast forgiven and pardoned and release him who has spoken the psalm. Amen. Salah. So if you notice, that psalm is really connected with the prayer, because that prayer is basically asking for God to forgive you for the sin that you have just done. And it's really a way to ask for forgiveness for something that you have done to someone and the pain that you have caused that person. And if you feel like you can't live with yourself and you feel like you're beating up yourself, and this is something that you just don't know how to move forward, this is a psalm that you can actually use. And sometimes, sometimes people will say, well, you know what? If you feel that way, well, maybe you should go back and apologize. And maybe you should call the person and tell them that you're sorry. Now, that sometimes does not work in your favor, because sometimes, depending what you've done to someone, that person needs time to heal, right? So if someone cut you, your wound needs time to heal, right? And not all the time the healing process is so quickly, right? Depending on the magnitude of the hurt that you cause in that person's life. Sometimes that person needs space. So, sometimes when you do go back and tell this person, hey, I'm sorry, it turns into a bigger argument because that person is not ready to receive the apology that you're giving. So I do feel like if you are feeling down and depressed off hurting someone, I do believe it starts with self-healing first. It starts with you. Once you accept that you have caused that person hurt and caused that person pain, then it's a way for you to now make amends with God on what you have done. Sometimes it does not always work out the way it works when we contact the person we hurt. I know when I was a younger child, and I will flip out because I'm a Taurus, and I used to go from 0 to 100 very quickly. And I remember going to people and saying, hey, listen, I wanna apologize, and that person will bring up all the flaws, and they will use that in a way to criticize and critique every negative flaw about me during the process of me apologizing when I hurt the person. And it tends to go into the most negative way, because if I'm not ready to accept, right, all the negativity about me, then I tend to get defensive and it goes into an argument. Or it turns into, the person playing victim. Because there's a lot of times when you are hurt, it definitely sometimes can be two of you guys hurting each other, right? Sometimes something that person say triggers off the emotion because you're not balanced and you can't control your emotions, and you go to a place of losing your control without communicating in the most best and possible way, without really thinking about what was said, and you respond in such a negative way that you trigger off this emotion and it comes out like in an outburst, and you may say things or do things in a way that affects the person drastically, right? So this is where it comes into play of saying Psalm 62. So I'm a firm believer on forgiving. I'm a firm believer on not forgetting. And I'm a firm believer on forgiving your own self as well. Because I think that's it plays a major role in your ability to moving forward. Because I remember very, very early on in my teenage years of just having such anger, just being very angry as a child and being able to not express myself in the best way. And a lot of times things will come out like in an outburst and very negative, because I'm not being able to be in tune with my own true feelings and tap into my feelings and literally express myself. And I'm holding all this emotions and I'm suppressing all these hurt feelings. And then when I say what I say, it's just basically in the most negative way all the time. And sometimes I will say things that I just don't really believe, but I just say things with intention to hurt someone. And it did. And then when I went back to apologize, it turned out to be a very victim role of this person is like, well, you always constantly attack me, da 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 da, and never really got to the point of the root of the main topic of what I'm apologizing for. So I think when you do something to hurt someone, is the main subject is really understanding why you do it, what you're willing to do to change, of why you're going so low in the first place. And we're not perfect. We're not, beings that has no imperfection. We're gonna make slip-ups. We're gonna hurt people. People are gonna hurt us. But there's always a process for healing. There's a process for making room for growth and change. And as long as you learn from your mistakes and you actually live accordingly to knowing that certain words can hurt, can affect somebody, I think you're on the right path, right? So again, Psalm 62, and I'm gonna say the prayer again, and it says, may it be thy will, El Chad, that thou forgives and pardon and release me from my sin, and thou hast forgiven me and pardon and release me, whom has spoken the psalm before. Amen. Salah. So again, the activating word is Yah when before giving the psalm, and then the prayer follows behind. Okay? Now, there's other psalms in the book that goes for forgiveness. There's also other psalms that actually is good for forgiveness, like Psalm 75, and then the activating holy name is Chad, which the meaning is one, and that psalm is also a psalm that you can say 75 and as well as 62. Now 62 holy name is Yah, and it does have a prayer that is attached to that psalm, and with Psalm 75, there's not a prayer in the prayer book that I'm actually following that is attached to the Psalm. So keep that in mind. You can do Psalm 75 and Psalm 62, but 75 does not have an prayer, and the Psalm 75 activating holy name that activates the psalm is Chad, and Psalm 62, the holy name that's activating the psalm, is Yah. And thank you for watching and joining my Spiritual Thursday.